My ex-husband told the judge I was mentally unfit, until my Pentagon security clearance was read aloud. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disappointment, the kind of place where dreams went to die under fluorescent lights. I sat perfectly still as my ex-husband Richard took the stand, his Tom Ford suit impeccable, his lying mouth curved into a concerned frown that he'd probably practiced in the mirror this morning. "She can't even hold a job," Richard testified, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. "She's unstable, paranoid, sees threats everywhere. She once made our daughter throw away a perfectly good tablet because she claimed it could be compromised. What rational person thinks like that?" The judge nodded sympathetically, making notes on his yellow pad. Of course he did. Richard looked like the picture of success and stability, a senior partner at Brennan, Mitchell and Associates, the kind of man judges golf with on weekends. And me? I sat there in my simple navy suit, the one that didn't show the coffee stain from this morning when my hands shook from exhaustion, not from the mental instability Richard was painting. "Can you provide specific examples?" Richard's lawyer, Patricia Brennan herself, prompted. Because of course Richard got the managing partner to personally handle his custody case. Certainly. Richard adjusted his tie. A tell I'd learned meant he was about to lie spectacularly. "She keeps irregular hours, sometimes disappearing for days without explanation. She's secretive, constantly checking her phone, always looking over her shoulder. Classic paranoid behavior." I felt my lawyer, David Morse, tense beside me. He knew the truth, had the documents to prove it, but we'd agreed to let Richard hang himself first. "Give him enough rope," David had said. "Let him commit to the lies under oath." And the employment situation. Patricia continued, leading him like a prized show dog. Richard sighed dramatically. "She claims to work for the government, but she can't explain what she does. No consistent schedule, no real office anyone can visit, no colleagues she can name. I think she's either delusional or covering up unemployment with elaborate fantasies." A few people in the gallery exchanged glances. Richard's mother nodded approvingly from the front row. "She'd never liked me, always thought her precious son had married beneath him when he'd settled for a government worker instead of the heiress she'd picked out." "What about her behavior with your daughter?" Patricia asked. This was the part that made my chest tight. Our daughter Emma, 8 years old, caught in the middle of Richard's campaign to paint me as insane. She fills Emma's head with bizarre ideas about operational security and need-to-know basis. Last month, she tried to teach our 8-year-old about information compartmentalization. What kind of mother does that instead of helping with normal homework? The kind who's preparing her daughter for the realities of the world, I said quietly, breaking my silence. Judge Harrison looked at me sharply. "Ms. Walker, you'll have your turn to speak." "My apologies, Your Honor," I said, settling back in my chair. Richard continued his performance. "She has episodes where she doesn't sleep for days, staring at multiple computer screens, talking about attack vectors and system vulnerabilities. She once woke Emma up at 3 a.m. because she thought someone was trying to hack our home network." "And was someone?" Patricia asked, knowing the answer would sound absurd. "She claimed they were, but when I had a normal IT professional check, they found nothing wrong. She sees threats that don't exist, creates drama where there is none. It's exhausting and, frankly, frightening for Emma." The judge continued making notes. I could practically see my custody evaporating with each scratched word. "She refuses to use social media," Richard added, as if this was evidence of mental illness. "Claims it's a security risk. Won't let Emma have a smartphone, insists on knowing everyone Emma talks to online. She interrogated a 9-year-old at Emma's birthday party because the child mentioned her father worked in telecommunications." Some of the parents in the gallery, Richard had made sure to pack it with his supporters, shook their heads disapprovingly. "I'm concerned for Emma's safety," Richard said, and for a moment, he almost sounded sincere. "Catherine needs help, professional help. I'm not saying she's a bad person, but she's clearly dealing with paranoid delusions that make her an unfit parent." "Objection," David said calmly. "Is Mr. Harrison a qualified psychiatrist?" "Sustained," the judge said. "Stick to behaviors you've observed, Mr. Harrison." Richard nodded, but the damage was done. He'd painted his picture, a paranoid, delusional woman who couldn't hold a job, kept crazy hours, and was filling our daughter's head with conspiracy theories. "Your witness," Patricia said, sitting down with a satisfied smile. David stood slowly, unhurried. "Mr. Harrison, you mentioned that your ex-wife claims to work for the government. Have you ever actually verified where she works?" Richard scoffed. She says she can't tell me. Claims it's classified. I see. And you found this suspicious? Of course. It's a convenient excuse for someone who's unemployed. David nodded thoughtfully. When you were married, did Catherine ever receive calls or messages at unusual hours? Constantly. Another sign of her instability. Did you ever notice who was calling? Richard paused. The caller ID was always blocked. I see. And these multiple computer screens she stares at, did you ever look at what was on them? It was all nonsense. Code, diagrams, things that made no sense. Made no sense to you, David corrected. Mr. Harrison, are you familiar with the term security clearance? Patricia stood. Objection. Relevance. Goes to the witness's claims about my client's employment and mental state, David replied. I'll allow it, Judge Harrison said. Richard rolled his eyes. Everyone knows what security clearance is. Then you know that people with high-level clearances often can't discuss their work, even with spouses. If she actually had clearance. Your Honor, David interrupted, returning to our table. I'd like to submit Defense Exhibit A. He handed a sealed envelope to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. The envelope bore the seal of the Department of Defense. Judge Harrison frowned, opened it carefully. His eyes widened as he read, then widened more. He looked up at me, then back at the document, then at David. Approach, he said quietly. Both lawyers went to the bench. I could see Patricia's confidence evaporate as the judge whispered something urgently. She kept shaking her head, gesturing at Richard. Finally, Judge Harrison spoke aloud. We'll take a 15-minute recess. Bailiff, please secure the courtroom. No one enters or leaves. The bailiff locked the doors. Richard looked confused. His mother started to stand, but the bailiff motioned for her to sit. When court resumed, Judge Harrison's entire demeanor had changed. Mr. Morse, please read the document I've just reviewed into the record. David stood, holding a copy. This is a verification from the Pentagon, classified secret, now declassified for these proceedings by order of the Secretary of Defense. Richard went pale. David continued reading. Catherine and Walker maintains top-secret, sensitive compartmented information clearance. She serves as director of the Cyber Terrorism Prevention Unit, National Security Agency, reporting directly to the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Her psychiatric evaluations, conducted quarterly as part of her clearance maintenance, consistently show exceptional mental stability, cognitive function, and judgment under extreme pressure. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Richard's mother gasping. The document continues, David said. Ms. Walker has prevented 17 major cyber attacks against critical infrastructure in the past 24 months. Her work requires irregular hours, immediate response to threats, and absolute operational security. Any disclosure of her activities, even to family members, would constitute a federal crime under the Espionage Act. That's impossible, Richard stammered. David wasn't finished. There's more, Your Honor. The incident Mr. Harrison described as paranoid behavior, detecting a hack on their home network, was verified by NSA forensics. The attack originated from a Russian state-sponsored group attempting to compromise Ms. Walker through her personal devices. Her quick response prevented a significant intelligence breach. I watched Richard's face cycle through confusion, disbelief, and finally, horror as he realized what he'd done. Your Honor, David continued, I have here Ms. Walker's performance evaluations from the past 5 years. He held up another folder. Shall I read the highlights? Judge Harrison nodded, looking stunned. Agent Walker demonstrates exceptional ability to maintain cover while managing critical national security operations. Her psychological resilience under extreme stress is in the top 1% of all agency personnel. Recommended for the Distinguished Intelligence Medal for her role in preventing the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack. The Colonial Pipeline, someone whispered in the gallery. She stopped that. David pulled out another document. Your Honor, this is a letter from the director of the NSA. He read, any suggestion that Director Walker is mentally unfit is not only false but dangerous. She is one of our most valuable assets in protecting national security. Her ability to identify threats that others miss has saved countless lives and billions in economic damage. Patricia stood up, clearly scrambling. Your Honor, we had no way of knowing. You had no way of knowing because you never asked, David interrupted. You took Mr. Harrison's word that his ex-wife was delusional instead of considering that someone who graduated summa cum laude from Carnegie Mellon with a degree in computer science might actually be doing exactly what she claimed, working for the government in a classified capacity. The judge turned to Richard. Mr. Harrison, you testified under oath that your ex-wife was unemployed and delusional. You're now learning that she's a senior national security official. Do you have anything to say? Richard's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I didn't know. She never said. She couldn't say, the judge corrected sharply. It says right here that disclosure would have been a federal crime. He looked at the document again. It also says here that you, Mr. Harrison, were investigated as a potential security risk during your marriage due to your firm's connections with foreign entities. Now Richard went white. What? David smiled grimly. Your Honor, if I may introduce Defense Exhibit B, Mr. Harrison's law firm represents several companies with ties to foreign governments. The NSA conducted a routine security assessment. Ms. Walker was required to monitor her own husband for potential compromise. She found him clean, but the stress of suspecting her spouse while being unable to explain her behavior contributed to their divorce. She was investigating me. She was protecting national security, David corrected. Even when it meant letting you believe she was paranoid rather than revealing that your firm was handling cases for companies flagged by the intelligence community. Judge Harrison set down the documents. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you ever, at any point, consider that your wife's claims about her job might be true? Richard looked at his lawyer helplessly. She couldn't prove anything. Because proof would have been treason, the judge said flatly. Ms. Walker, is there anything you'd like to add? I stood slowly. Your Honor, everything Richard described as paranoid behavior was me doing my job. The irregular hours? I was responding to active cyber attacks. The multiple screens? I was monitoring threat feeds from 16 intelligence agencies. The interrogation of a child at Emma's party? That child's father worked for a telecommunications company that had just been breached by Chinese hackers. I was trying to assess if Emma had been targeted as a way to get to me. And you couldn't explain any of this to your husband? No, Your Honor. My clearance. Your clearance required you to let him think you were crazy rather than reveal you were protecting the country, the judge finished. I understand. Richard's lawyer tried one last gambit. Your Honor, regardless of the reason, this secrecy and these behaviors could still be confusing for a child. Objection, David said. If I may present Defense Exhibit C. Another envelope. This one made the judge smile slightly as he read. This is a letter from Emma Harrison's teacher, the judge said. Would you like me to read it, or would you prefer Mr. Morse to? Please, Your Honor, I said. I'd like to hear it in your words. Judge Harrison cleared his throat. Emma Harrison is an exceptional student who demonstrates remarkable critical thinking skills. When our school's computer system was infected with ransomware last month, Emma immediately recognized the signs because, in her words, my mom taught me about suspicious files. She alerted administration before any damage was done. She shows no signs of anxiety or confusion about her mother's work, only pride. She recently wrote an essay about heroes where she described her mother as someone who fights bad guys on computers to keep everyone safe. The maturity and understanding she shows is remarkable for her age. Richard slumped in his chair. There's one more thing, David said, pulling out his phone. Your Honor, I've just received a message. Due to the claims made in this courtroom today about Director Walker's mental fitness, the Pentagon is opening an investigation. Into Catherine? Richard asked, panicked. Into you, Mr. Harrison, David replied. Making false statements about a federal agent's mental fitness in an attempt to undermine national security is a federal offense. The FBI will be in touch. The judge looked at Richard with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Harrison, you've wasted this court's time, attempted to separate a child from a fit parent, and potentially compromised national security with your false testimony. I'm granting full custody to Ms. Walker, with supervised visitation for you pending the federal investigation. Your Honor, Patricia started. I'm not finished, Judge Harrison said sharply. Mr. Harrison will also pay all legal fees, undergo a psychiatric evaluation of his own to address his apparent need to control and discredit his ex-wife, and attend co-parenting classes to learn how to respect the other parent. He turned to me. Ms. Walker, I apologize on behalf of the court system. You've endured accusations of mental illness while serving your country at the highest levels. The fact that you maintained your cover even under these circumstances speaks to exactly the kind of stability and judgment we should want in someone protecting our national security. As the gavel came down, Richard's mother was crying. The gallery was buzzing. Several people were already on their phones, probably Googling my name and finding nothing, because that's how good I was at my job. Emma would be living with me. Richard would be lucky if he didn't face federal charges. And I had a cyber attack to prevent. The Chinese had been probing our power grid all morning, and my team was waiting for orders. "Catherine," Richard called as I headed for the door. I didn't know. You have to believe me, I didn't know. I turned back. No, Richard. You didn't want to know. You wanted me to be crazy because it was easier than admitting you married someone smarter than you. Someone whose job was more important than yours. Someone you couldn't control. The bailiff opened the door. 2 men in black suits were waiting. My security detail, who'd been sitting outside the whole time because even attending my own custody hearing was a security risk. "Director Walker," one said quietly. "The secretary needs you at the Pentagon. We have a situation." I nodded, then looked back at Richard one last time. "You thought I was paranoid, seeing threats everywhere?" "Richard, I see threats because they are there. And the only reason you sleep safely at night is because people like me stand watch. People you tried to paint as crazy." As I walked out, I heard Patricia ask Richard, "You seriously didn't know your wife ran cyber defense for the entire country?" His response was lost as the doors closed, but it didn't matter. Emma would grow up knowing her mother wasn't crazy or paranoid or delusional. She was a guardian, a protector, a warrior in a digital age. And Richard? He'd learn what happened when you mistook strength for instability, vigilance for paranoia, and dedication for delusion. My phone buzzed. Another attack detected. I climbed into the black SUV, already shifting from mom mode to defender mode. Because that's what I did. I protected people. Even the ones who'd tried to destroy me.